my goodness. Let's do some sort of like a weird unboxing that's actually totally fake because I already opened this box. Oh, one of the best companies in the world, one of the best tool companies ever has sent me a product. What is this? It's a product. Oh, check this out. That's awesome. Now, I'd love to promote this, but the company's actually been out of business for 50 years.
You check it out, I got some product in my yard. Rich like niggas, I'm the anti-commissar. I'm a horror, maybe I'm gonna make it too. Choppity chop goes the blade, decapitated notes.
That is a wheel hoe from who knows how long ago. I haven't actually tried to date the model, but it is a Planet Junior wheel hoe, and it is one of 3 that I have purchased in the last month. 2 off of eBay and 1 off of Etsy. When I was a kid, my grandpa had a coffee mug that said, "There's no tool like an old tool." And I completely agree. It is really hard to find any modern tool. Now, there are modern wheel hoes that are good. Haas makes a good wheel hoe. Apparently Blazer makes a pretty good wheel hoe. But I don't think the beauty of the manufacturing is there compared to antique tools. It's like we just can't make them anymore. Everything is sort of stamped out or welded, or it's just not quite the same. Things are just not quite the same. And so the price of these old tools is actually, I mean, those old Planet Junior wheel hoes are expensive, but there's nothing like them. I mean, I think a Haas is probably up to the quality at this point. I had a Haas and I liked it. But I just like the history, too, of the old ones. And you can't go cheap. Like, if you're going to buy a new one, you can get a vintage one for maybe a little bit less, or maybe even around the same price, that's going to have high quality. But if you try to go for something real cheap, it's just going to be garbage. Like, everything cheap is garbage. And even the really expensive stuff is sometimes not that great. I mean, just go look at the reviews of, like, the juicers, for example. I bought an old Champion juicer, a vintage one, for like 80 bucks on eBay. And I was, you know, I used to own one of those things. They're basically indestructible. And I was looking at the price of like one of the new designer type juicers. And it was, you know, $350 or something like that. And I'm reading the reviews and it's like 4.3 stars. I got this and the spout broke, or the such and such gasket inside is just made of plastic, and all these pieces break. So I'm totally on with the no tool like an old tool. The old hoe heads that I have are fantastic. The old forged forks last forever. There were forks down on Grenada in the Caribbean that had been brought by the British, and they were still being used by the descendants of the workers in their fields. They're still working. The old farmer down the road from me had one that he had found buried out in the field and had a new handle, a metal handle welded onto, and he pressed it right back into service. And the new ones that you get from the store, the tines bend right away. It's terrible. It's like, you know, they'll say it's still American quality or still English quality, the same quality for 100 and bazillion years, but it's been offshored to China or India or something like that, and it really isn't the same quality. All you got to do is go and check out the tools that are in your grandpa's shed and compare them against anything made in the last 20 or 30 years. It's really hard to beat. So, hey, for old-fashioned tools, putting them back into service makes a lot of sense. Go on eBay, get the old hoe heads, get the old tools, and make it work.
Basically, there are multiple reasons why you might prefer antique tools. And the first one, which I already mentioned, is because they are super strong. I mean, the stuff just isn't built the same way it used to be. You can actually take one of those old hoe heads and shave with it because the steel is so good. And I think the new stuff is just completely weak and crummy, and it's made of Chinesium and just doesn't cut it. And let's face it, if it's lasted since the 50s, it's probably going to last a little bit longer. So secondarily, there's nothing like the feel of an old tool. Something that's been working for a while. Another thing is the reduce, reuse, recycle aspect. You're using something instead of forcing another thing to be made. Now generally, I don't think there's anything wrong with new stuff being made. However, there's an additional benefit right now, and that is new stuff is hard to get. Supply lines are kind of a mess. I'd rather get a used tool from somewhere in the US than have a tool get stuck in a port off California. That isn't as cool anyhow. So here in the gym, I'm just gonna ask this random woman, what do you think about vintage and antique tools?
I'm all for it.
And that's it.
That's it.
And so therefore we should all get them.
Definitely.
Now some old tools make sense and some don't. Some stuff just gets broken or rusted beyond repair and it's just no good. And some things, they really have a certain amount of working life before they give up. I have an old hoe head, a garden hoe, and it's really great steel, but it's been rounded off so much that it's barely usable. I got another one from the same era that is flat across the front. When I put a blade on it, it is way better than a new hoe. Sometimes old forks could have been bent and then bent back and they've lost their temper. That's no good, you don't want that. But an old hoe, like particularly those great big grub hoes, so long as they're not really rusted out or pitted and damaged too badly, you can put those back into service most of the time. Some things you're gonna have to ask an expert on, like axe and hatchet heads. I have no idea, but I know that my friend Steven over at Skill Cult, if you're on the Skill Cult YouTube channel, tons of information over there. He would know whether it's worth, you know, putting an old axe or a hatchet head back on. If it's a good one, I'm sure it would be, but maybe if it was burned off in a fire, it might not be. It might have lost its temper, and that's beyond my understanding. And you know, sometimes tools have just been used to a point where there's no reclaiming it. Some things just don't come back together. Like we've got this high wheel hoe that I found in a rotten building on our property, and it's all the wheel of it was an old steel wheel, and it is all fallen to pieces and the wood has rotted out and it's beyond usable. But some stuff, like these old Planet Junior hoes that I've been getting lately, are still worth it. So what do you think on used tools? Isn't it a great idea? I mean, there's nothing like it, and you got that little piece of history in your hands and you can put it back into service. I mean, my favorite places are like garage sales, thrift stores, flea markets, and of course the never-ending flea market of eBay. But you won't get your best deals there. The best deals you're gonna get are like at those little local shops, and sometimes even an antique shop where they've got an old gardening tool and there's not really any collectible value to it, but they just want to move it and keep the stuff coming in, particularly like those little antique mall places with all the different vendors. Fantastic places to find cool old tools. So leave me a comment below. Be sure to like and subscribe. And of course, visit me on the web at thesurvivalgardener.com. And until next time, may your thumbs always be green.